Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Crypto News. And today we have a pretty heavy video because we got some crazy stuff that's been going on. So make sure you watch this one all the way through. It is going to be heavy, guys. It is going to be heavy. With that in mind, though, my question of today is, are you bullish on crypto? I am talking short term, medium term, long term, doesn't really matter. Are you bullish on these cryptocurrency? I've seen a lot of people in my comment section say, man, this is all good, but crypto is going to zero, or XRP is a bad coin, things like that. I see them all the time. Let's do a little bit of a poll. Write down below if you're bullish or bearish for crypto. Having said that, the stock market is on the edge of a historic crash. Dan Runkeficius or whatever says he provides a bird's eye view of what's driving the markets, and I think it's pretty obvious as of this point what is all causing this. There's, in my opinion, about four main reasons. One, of course, is what I'm highlighting here. Don't want to say it out loud in the video because they might censor me for that type of stuff. I don't want to risk it. The second one I would say is that, this part without the last word behind it. A third one I would say, again, is stimulus. Right now in the US, the quantitative easing together with, again, the election that's coming up, all of that is creating a ton of uncertainty, which makes people sell, which makes people get out of all these things. And together with that, what was the other one? No, I think that was actually kind of summing it up. It was things that were related to the pandemic and things that were related to QE. I think those were actually it. I could have made it 4 points, but I kind of abbreviated it to 3 now, I think. However, you guys get the point here, you get the idea. Those things are really, really hurting right now. I got actually another one. That is that Trump is really heavy now against tech companies. He made a couple of statements earlier. I briefly went over it where he said that they are helping, again, his competitor, his op. I don't want to say those names out there because I don't know how YouTube, likes that type of stuff. But that Trump's op was, using this social media and this great tech in his advantage or to his advantage and suppressing some info. That's again what Trump has said. I can't judge the truth right there. Please don't get angry at me in the comment section. I'm just relaying the things they've said. With that though, something else I noticed that they were talking about is that they should stop it or they should do something against it. And together with that, there's also a lawsuit against Google, right? I actually have a part of that open as well. Domino effect, Google antitrust case could spell trouble for other tech giants. And what I briefly read through this one, it is that they were also tracking people once they were in incognito mode. And I saw a lot of memes pop by over on Instagram. Talking about Instagram, by the way, make sure you check out my Growth Masters Academy. A link is in the description below. I made that specifically for you guys to help everybody that's just, working their butts off to create some extra income. It's completely free, no ads, no nothing. I'm going to be making videos on there with some tutorials, hopefully. It's just fun and cool stuff. I'm trying to help out. So please also support that if you are interested in some income on the side. If you're not, just keep watching because we're going on. Further though, I think those are 3 now. We got Trump, we got the CV, we got Google. Another one is China. It comes from China, so we call it China. China's new 5-year plan has an ambitious aim to become a self-sufficient global tech superpower. I think anybody can guess that this is a pretty heavy statement to come out. And of course, guys, give me just a second to leak this all or to relate this all to crypto. Because what we're seeing here right now is China is already making a good plan for the next couple of years to, try to take over, to make tech their thing, to make themselves a superpower in this sense. They are, we know, preparing to become the world's reserve currency. They really want it. They're doing their best to get there. They're planning to become the number 1 leading economy, which they are on a good pace for to get there. They're claiming and aiming to get the CBDC rolled out first. And they're again on a path of that. And now another claim they've made, as we can see right there, is a new 5-year plan that they want to become a self-sufficient global tech superpower, which is very scary for the US. I don't think they like that, but now the chips are on the table. Now we know. now we know. So those things are all pretty damn scary for the US, which might have caused a slight crash in the markets. Here we see something else. Andreessen Horowitz crypto team taps former NYSE regulatory honcho. The reason I wanted to quickly cover this one in here is because we're reading here about all these things that are causing the crypto markets to do bad, possibly. It's kind of two-sided though. I mean, a very bad thing for the stock market, and by the way, look at the views on this article. That is completely insane. 300 and something thousand, 350,000 in one day. That is crazy. However, all these things we're talking about here, even though they might be negative for, stocks, it's not like they should necessarily be bad for crypto, if we think about it. I mean, all these things we just mentioned, they don't really have much to do with crypto. The only one that has to do with crypto specifically, of course, is that CBDC part, because that's kind of crypto, and the part which talks about all the regulation and all the regulatory stuff and all that they have to arrange on that end. And regulatory stuff also comes above when you're talking about Google, when you're talking about these tech companies getting the freaking ban hammer on a regulatory perspective. Whenever we're reading about that, we know that the US is doing their best to regulate things properly, to make sure that people, are safe from all these things and that businesses can act, by the rules and things like that. The problem is, though, it might be that the US is so busy with, first of all, this CBDC, second of all, this big tech, and third of all, maybe some borders and walls that they're building. I don't even know what else they're doing. And of course, the CARES Act, the HEROES Act, all those things, that the QE, the stimulus that they've all been working on, the election that they're working on, all of that they really don't get to a good point to talk about crypto itself regulation. To a certain degree, I would be like, well, if you want to roll out a CBDC, you're going to need a proper crypto framework. On the contrary, though, it is quite a little bit different because, Bitcoin and Ethereum are quite safe. To a certain degree, Libra has been ruled out to be at a certain point. They've claimed a couple of things about that one. And I think because it's a government-issued thing, a CBDC could also roll out fine without a proper framework still, right? It is only when we're talking about some currency that are provided by a fintech or by an outstanding party that things are going to be getting difficult. But the US is not really in a hurry to get that done. All right, and I'm also sometimes thinking that these threads from Ripple, or I shouldn't call them threads, I should call them, kind of calls for help, are not really being answered. Even though we see tons of regulators talking with Ripple, there's no substantial evidence that it's really coming along. And I'm sometimes wondering as well, when are we going to see progress? Because Ripple is calling, Ripple is crying, but it's not coming. And all these things you're reading, I first off said here that it might be negative for stocks, not that negative for crypto. These are all, literally everything I showed you guys here, are all positive things for XRP. Right? You might be wondering why. Well, think about the stock market. I want to relate this further for you guys, so put your brain open for taken in mode, because this is going to be a little bit heavy. Think about the stock market right now and think of the consequences. First of all, I just showed you guys a little bit earlier here, people could be losing their homes en masse. People could be losing tons of homes. What would that be? All right, what would that give? That would possibly give people less income, right? If they were to lose their home, they could also lose their job. People would get on the street, not being able to do some stuff. They would lose their job and things like that, would give less income, would make people save less, for an example, but also would make people produce less, consume less, If people consume less, well, companies will produce less. If they produce less, again, the whole cycle will continue, jobs will be able to be lost and so forward and so on. But think about that saving structure just a little bit. If they're saving less, all right, saving and investments are on the same line. If they're investing less, they have to put the interest rate down lower, right? Because, well, they want people to produce more. They want people to, again, do more. Investments cheaper, so people do it more often. Have to put it lower. However, right now we are already at 0.25%. So what is there to do? They could only go for a negative interest rate or a zero one. A 0.01 has no use. So it's either a zero or a negative one. If we go for a 0.1, it's kind of the beginning of the end, because 0% yield means that your country is kind of given up. Just honestly, we are not going to go too far into that because it's a very long story to explain why. If we go to negative territory, it is the opposite of giving up. It is giving in, All right, I know that's the same thing, but I wanted to say it a little bit differently. It is complete freaking ludicrousy. Is that a word? I don't even know. It sounds very nice, like ludicrous, but then ludicrously, I don't know. It would just be completely crazy because as of that point, a lot of places in Europe right now get their yield in America because the yield is still above zero. If that were to also go below zero right now, then where are banks going to get their yield from? How would the German economy stay stable if they can't get some stuff over there? What would happen? What would make that do? What would make that whatever? Is that this whole system would kind of collapse, and the banking system as we know it is not going to be holding off much longer. Fun fact, if I go to my bank right now and I want to deposit $1 million or €1 million, I will have to pay money on that every single year. It is fun, right? But that is a negative interest rate. I checked it out just yesterday, I believe. If I open a savings account for a kid, if I put $1 million in there, I have to pay to have money in a savings account. It's really true, guys. Not kidding. It's not like I'm talking about a monthly fee. I'm talking about a negative 0.07 or something like that % interest rate, which is pretty heavy in my opinion. To really, really have to pay for keeping money with your bank is strange, right? So eventually that whole system of leaving money on the bank will not work anymore. It would drive the banking sector to shreds, which would, again, to kind of put this story together, be really beneficial for XRP. We could also put imports and exports into the equation. Let's keep that out for now because that's going to make it another step more difficult with purchasing power and whatnot and the currency. But you can kind of relate it further for yourself, I think. Again, if things in your country are being produced less and stuff like that, things might get a lot cheaper because people can't afford that type of stuff. Theoretically speaking, everything could get more expensive because they want to get that profit back, but normally it doesn't work like that. Things will get cheaper because people can't afford it. And thus, since stuff in your country will get cheaper, people might invest more in it. But again, Trump and the US has some rules for that, which might make things a little bit more difficult. But that will also do things for your currency, which is now possibly become cheaper in the outstanding's eyes, which again might make your economy flourish, but it might also bring a lot more, again, overseas investment inside, which might be very negative for the local population, which might bring it down more and get the spiral of the US dollar lower and lower, making it kind of useless or worthless in the end. Again, these are possible scenarios. I'm just kind of sketching a draft, or drafting a draft? What the frick? Crafting a draft. Sketching a draft. Sketching a sketch, whatever. I'm making a little bit of a thing for you guys to kind of think about, because all that stuff would be negative for the US dollar, but very positive for XRP. Why? Banking system collapsing. What will make that of XRP? Well, if the banks were to flourish, if the exact opposite were to happen, a big stock increase, the banks will most likely want to innovate to stay on the top. So they would use something like XRP to make their days better, or Ripple. If the banks were to fall, I think people will understand how important it is to have easy transactions and how important it is to be able to be your own middleman and to make transactions and all banking sort of services just easy. And they would go to Ripple as well. They would crawl to Ripple. Again, that's my thoughts. So with all of that in mind, Ripple's not a bank. It's a bank. It has banking services, but it's not a bank. So it won't crumble under the pressure. It's all positive. Another one is, let's say that the US dollar really shrinks. China becomes the best superpower out there. Think about it. US will still be very, very popular. There's still, again, going to be an ongoing war forever. But China is first with the CBDC. There's some very good thoughts about, what currency would they use to be the middleman? Because China, US, they're not going to want to work together in any way, shape, or form. So we need some decentralized middleman, which again is going to be XRP. I've thought about it for a very long while, but I keep getting to the same conclusion because it just makes a lot of sense. All right, I still think that's going to be happening, but all right. To kind of relate that back to regulatory clarity, this all could be speeded up a lot if there were to be regulatory clarity, because then whatever scenario were to happen, it doesn't really matter anymore because everybody would know exactly what they're up against. As of this point, Ripple has to hold back a little bit and they can't expand as heavily because they're not quite sure where they are at. Eventually, though, this will all be fixed, but I think the US is waiting for it a little bit. Trump administration worried China is leaping ahead of US in adoption of digital currency. I mean, they are. They are, obviously. They are, obviously. And the US is not doing anything about it. All right, I believe the Fed or IMF, I don't remember, one of those instances has called out to say that it's more important to do your CBDC properly than to do it quickly, which is, again, kind of a given up statement, right? Then some other stuff on China. I wanted to say, but mostly about the US and their rules and why BNB has been going down like 7% today. Leaked document details how Binance planned to evade US regulators for profits. Yeah. The document was drafted in 2018 ahead of Binance US launch, shows the exchange planned to establish a Tai Chi entity. The unnamed US entity was to act as a regulatory cushion, protecting its primary operations from enforcement. And then they've denied that's a thing. It's an elaborate, or they denied the elaborate scheme. However, there's going to be a back and forth. It's a FUD. Could also be the real truth, though, because, I mean, if it were to be my company in this sense, and I had so many millions of people checking me out all the time, and, you see your coin dumping 4% or something like that, at the period of the day, or the tip of the day, it was like -7 or so. I would also lie completely, all right? I've told you guys I won't lie on the channel, so I would not do it that way. But I would definitely lie if I were in his position. It's the best thing you could possibly do. All right, him admitting now, yeah, we wanted to evade tax, dumbest thing in the world. If he did that, he would be the most stupid mother, in the world. I would definitely give him a thumbs down on that one. So I'm gonna call out and say this decision, smart one. All right, this was most likely the smartest thing they could have done, because I mean, lying ain't gonna do you too much negative, because it's your word against that of a random guy out there. It's that simple. It's plain plain as freaking daylight. I don't know what else to say about that one. He couldn't have told the truth. It would be so freaking dumb. Oh my days. I'm already kind of afraid of him telling the truth. That would not be good. I saw a couple of other things here which I found very interesting. This one, I actually did not even check it out yet, but I see it's very popular, and since I am a data scientist, my hand is crawling a little bit. I want to see. This data scientist's model shows Biden is still a 3-1 favorite to win, but he's fading in the home stretch. Never mind. I don't want to cover that in the video here because I'm a little bit afraid that people are going to, not like it whenever I talk about the election, so I want to kind of skip out on that. This one might be interesting, though. When Congress is likely to make a deal to send more stimulus checks, I still think it's going to be coming, but it will definitely be after the election just now. I mean, the election is already in a couple of days, so that's not that strange, but I can't even read it. All right, screw you, I guess. This article and articles like this are very important because the big stimulus might also decide exactly how crypto adoption is following along. We've noticed from a survey that a lot of people that get their stimulus would invest some extra cash into crypto now. However, we don't really know how that all ties in because the US dollar's valuation goes down, the US debt goes up, and I guess how would stocks reply to that? Honestly, I would not even know. All right, quantitative easing is a very negative thing for Apple, for example, because they got about $190 billion in cash. So if they were to print and the dollar goes down, all of a sudden that $191 billion is worth, let's say, $181 billion. That's a very heavy one, but let's say it's worth about $189 billion. It lost $2 billion in valuation. If you lose $2 in purchasing power of your 191, it's not too much. Losing $2 billion, though, is quite a little. You'd have to sell quite a couple of iPhones. I mean, at their price, maybe not that many, but it's still a lot of money. And maybe that would also bring all those stock prices down, right? And those things can still be profitable for crypto, yes. But I don't know if they would be. I don't know. Because one of the big things we're waiting for still is for these bigger companies to hop on in, right? And on the 5-Minute Crypto channel, I talked briefly about Apple getting into, because there are some thoughts about that, all right? There are some thoughts that since the stimulus is coming, a lot of these companies might go for a safe haven like either gold or crypto. I'm thinking about it. If they were to fall like crazy, they would either go heavily for crypto, which would, again, change their stock price to a positive thing, or they would really just go to maybe like euro to safeguard themselves, or just ride the wave and just be like, America, and just go with the wave. I don't even know. I guess we'll be seeing, though, as time goes on here, and we're a couple of days away from the big day. So I guess it's not much time you have to wait for this for this miraculous and heavy event. But guys, that was it for today's video. You know what? If you are watching this video, comment, yeah, that would make us so rich, down below. All right? And if you comment that below and I don't like it, I don't press the like heart button on your comment, I'll give you a cookie.